Profiles in Cinemania, Carl Ciarfalio, and Memoriam. There are guys who know everyone. There are guys who everyone knows. Then there are the guys who everyone knows know. You know? Today's subject was that first one and that last one both. He knew everyone, and the guys who everyone knows knew him. But unless you happen to be one of those really special movie fetishists, or a member of this society.
There's a difference?
Or were someone who worked in the film industry, you probably won't recognize who in the hell we're talking about. And for good reason. But if you've ever watched an American action movie or television show from the 80s, 90s, 2000s, and beyond, chances are really good you've seen Carl Ciarfalio. Chances are also really good you won't know him by name. He was on screen with just about every major action movie star, from Arnold Schwarzenegger to Chuck Norris to Jean-Claude Van Damme to Clint Eastwood to Tom Cruise, worked with directors like Martin Scorsese, Steven Soderbergh, Ron Howard, but he never even rose to the status of a that guy in the public eye, despite appearing in over 300 feature films and major television series. Carl Ciarfalio was secretly famous. You see, Carl Ciarfalio was a stuntman. In many ways, he was the stuntman. He was one of a rare breed in Hollywood. Performers with steel in their nerves, brass in their balls, and titanium in their spines, sometimes literally. They are performers cast for their disposability, either in real life when the life and health of the star, and therefore the money, can't be risked, or for pretend because they can die on screen really well. And Carl died on screen really well. He won awards for it. He was on screen with all those action stars because he was usually getting blown away by them. It was a fine line he had to walk. He had to be menacing enough that the audience would believe he was a threat, but also forgettable enough that his performance didn't overshadow the star. This meant that beyond being a stuntman, Carl was something more rare and precious than a unicorn. A Hollywood actor without an ego. Carl menaced David Hasselhoff in Knight Rider, Richard Dean Anderson in MacGyver, Tom Selleck in Magnum P.I., David Rasche in Sledgehammer, and Scott Bakula in Quantum Leap. He was blown away both by Schwarzenegger in Commando and Charles Bronson in Death Wish 4, ventilated by 2 out of 3 RoboCops, annihilated by Christopher Walken in King of New York, myrtleated by Juliette Lewis and Woody Harrelson in Natural Born Killers, and defenestrated by Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible 3. He was pummeled by Stallone in Lock Up, Van Damme in both Death Warrant and Lionheart, was pulped by Nick Cage in Con Air, and got his head smushed in a vice by Joe Pesci in Casino. I could go on, but you get the picture. Yes, in character, Carl took almost as many L's as the LA Lakers. However, a rare on-screen win for Carl was also Tom Cruise's only on-screen loss. Carl played the nameless Italian bare-knuckle boxer who beat the absolute dog piss out of Cruise's character Joseph Donnelly in the 1992 film Far and Away. Yet Carl's victory wasn't enough to overshadow Cruise. After all, the story wasn't about his character. The pathos of that loss is what brought Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman together, both in the movie and in real life. Cruise reportedly held Ciarfalio in a kind of awe, but you can read Carl's 2016 book, Stunts, Stars, and Stories, for more on that and other amazing tales. It's short, but it's a great read. Born in 1953, Ciarfalio was a wrestler in both high school and college, and studied judo under, no shit, Judo Gene LaBelle. Carl first began doing stunts in his early 20s at the live Wild West stunt show at Knott's Berry Farm. For Carl, this gig frankly beat the hell out of his original career path of plumber. History is silent on whether Carl's transformation inspired another famous Italian plumber known for breaking bricks with his head. The proximity of Knott's Berry Farm to Hollywood allowed Carl to move to doing stunts on TV shows like BJ and the Bear and The Fall Guy, as well as body-doubling Lou Ferrigno in The Incredible Hulk. However, Carl hit the big time when he got called in to do what he called his fall into fame, a then record-breaking stunt on 1984's Against All Odds. He did a fall of over 65 feet into a cenote, completely bonelessly, a record that would be broken by Tom Cruise. first in 2011's Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, then again with his halo jump on 2018's Mission Impossible Fallout. Well, I guess you could say Carl might have had an influence on old Tom. Carl was inducted into the Stuntmen Association in 1985 and became its president from 1992 to 1996. He had a hand in establishing stunt categories for both the Academy Awards and the Emmy Awards, and served 2 terms on the Board of Governors at the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. Carl achieved that rare status of being considered Hollywood royalty. However, it was an injury he sustained doubling for Kevin Smith as Blunt Man on 1995's Mallrats that set up the dominoes of doom. A zipline snapped, causing him to land flat-footed on a concrete floor. At a mere 10 feet, it was a comparatively minor fall and was something everyone thought tough-as-nails Carl could walk off. Unfortunately, this turned out to be something that would eventually result in him needing to have his hips replaced and to have titanium rods implanted in his spine. Yes, we here at the Cinemania Society are aware of the irony in the guy who got his start doing stunts for Lee Majors effectively being turned into a real-life $6 million man. Carl kept on doing stunts after this accident, but the human body can only take so much abuse, and increasingly often, he started acting as stunt coordinator, a job you can think of as the guy who plans the stunts and ensures that stuntmen who do the fundamentally unsafe can do it as safely as possible. Carl began to branch out into consulting and associate producing, helping would-be filmmakers make connections and put together their packages. Eventually, around 2016, he retired to Nevada with his wife, screenwriter Terry Ryan. As his health began to fail, he required surgery after surgery, and tragically, he eventually lost the use of first his legs, then his arms, and was rendered mostly bedridden in his last few years. Carl Ciarfalio died peacefully of unspecified causes on November 19, 2025. The outpouring of sympathy from friends and colleagues, from the famous and the unknown alike, should provide insight into the impact he had on the film industry, but more importantly, the quality of person he was. Everybody who knew Carl loved him. He was warm, funny, brave, avuncular, and completely self-effacing. And yes, I knew him. I worked with him, and I loved him to bits. We exchanged Christmas cards regularly, and that's why it has taken me so long to write this memorial profile about the guy. Even though he died 6 months before this episode dropped, it was just too raw for me to talk about. He is and will continue to be the best. Love you, Uncle Carl. This has been another Profile in Cinemania. This episode was written and performed by Ethan Ireland. Music by Carl Casey at White Bat Audio.